Yes, I thought you sounded a little bit quiet.
And you sound a little bit hoarse, Nick. You can really feel it through the
Yes, I've had a little bit
internet.
of a flu over the past few days, and I'm not at 100%. I'm feeling better than I was, but
You sound
I
sexy.
apologize to everyone listening who spontaneously ejaculates as a result of my sensual new baritone timbre.
Yeah, you actually do sound better. Like way less nasally, which is always
Yeah,
nice.
well, I'm happy to oblige.
Yeah. How did you get this cold? Is it just a winter
How do
cold
you
thing?
think? Casey brought it
Gay
home from
stuff.
work.
Oh, yeah, okay.
What did you say?
I just said gay stuff as a guess.
Okay, well, I
We
guess
don't know.
technically true.
We don't
We
know.
don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. Yes, he had a sore throat earlier in the week. Annoyingly, his didn't progress into a full flu. And then I picked it up a few days later and completely knocked over. So that's actually worse than just being sick.
I have this ongoing kind of push and pull with Lauren that she thinks that I wouldn't admit if I was sick. I never get sick, basically never get sick, but she thinks that I do get sick but don't admit it, even
Right.
hungover or whatever. And I think that maybe that is true. Like I'm not in touch with my body enough, I think, to notice that like if I had a cough or if I felt a bit run down, I wouldn't be focused on it in any way. I'd have to get someone else to tell me. But I think that also helps with getting over something quicker.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't lead to you worsening the situation by, going off and doing things or, overexerting yourself and prolonging the thing or making it worse, where a day of rest or something could actually be all you need to kick it.
Yeah, I don't think I would rest though if I had like. Uh, I mean, it's never been a problem. It's never exacerbated anything. I mean, it probably have, but I don't know. It's fine. Literally cannot remember the last time I got sick, even
Yeah,
when I had COVID.
that's really annoying. Yeah.
Do you also have this thing where if where Casey's brought home this cold, given it to you, that you know that reasonably you can't be angry at him for giving you a cold, but on the back of your head you're like, you son of a bitch.
Is it reasonable to be angry about it? No. Am I trying being angry about it anyway? Absolutely.
You're trying to be angry.
Um,
Okay, that's good. That's
I'm
healthy.
trying. I'm trying it on. I'm seeing how it feels.
Hmm.
And I think there is a case to be made that were it not for his colleagues at work being sick, giving it to him and then him bringing home, I'd be fine. I
Hmm.
got my flu jab 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. I got my COVID booster.
Well, there's your
So
problem.
so this is really entirely on his head. And frankly, what that really says, it's about capitalism. Because if we didn't have to work and we all just got a universal basic income and we could all just do what we wanted, then I would have never been sick. And that's why we need to topple capitalism.
That's actually you've teed me up for what I want to talk to you about later. Hey
Oh,
Nick,
good. Can
nicely.
can I take a brief aside?
Yeah.
So I went to the pharmacy yesterday on KC's suggestion and got some of the good stuff. Some of the over the counter, the pseudoephedrine,
Not
the
the not the phenylephrine. The
not the
one that you have
fennel,
to.
which is
That's bullshit. That stuff. That's
yeah, it
dog
doesn't
shit.
do anything. Like famously, like actually doesn't do anything.
No, you need
Um,
this. You need the synthesized meth.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. So they've brought it back in over here. For 20 years, you couldn't get pseudo, basically,
Oh,
or it was
completely.
very difficult.
Right.
And they have just the most recent government has come in and been like, fuck it, just like what's a little bit more meth on the streets. And so I went back in and the woman was like, "Have you had it before?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I think so, but like 20 years ago." And she's like, "Oh, do you have any other conditions? Like, is there any?" And I was like, "No, it should be fine." I tell you what, I don't know why anyone's doing meth because I swear to God, the Sudafed was enough of a high for me. I
Yeah.
couldn't sleep last night. I
Nice.
was I was awake
Didn't
like
you
four
didn't
hours.
you didn't have the nighttime ones as well?
No, I didn't get the day and night one. I just got the
Oh,
standard.
yeah.
But
You need to
I had
calm
it at like
down.
yeah, I had it like 4 o'clock, and I was like, I'm not going to bed for 8 hours. I was still like awake at like properly awake, late into the early morning.
Yeah, isn't that lovely? I remember I reckon the last time I got properly sick, like congestion and everything,
Yeah.
was like maybe 2018. And I woke up and I had to work and I was hungover and I hadn't eaten. And I was like, I got a
Oof.
couple of these Sudafed things to just clear
Yeah.
me up. And I
Yeah.
took it and I was like, woo, let's go, baby. We went to club, went to a strip club. It
Yeah.
was great.
It's like it's so funny because again the comparison to phenylephrine, the Codral that's been on the shelves for 20 years, where you take it and you're sort of like, well, I guess maybe I feel a little bit better,
Yeah.
and then you take something which actually like has active working components. I was like, oh yeah, no, that was nonsense. That wasn't even placebo. It didn't do anything. This
No,
is stuff that's actually doing shit.
no, that other stuff is just like Panadol. I
Yeah.
swear. It doesn't do
Yeah.
anything. But I think, do you have to give your
No,
ID?
but Panadol, it does something. Like, it's even worse than Panadol,
Yeah, what the fuck is phenylephrine?
It was an attempt to make something that wasn't pseudo, and it didn't work.
It's funny that pseudo fed is the one that works, even though it's like
Yeah.
kind of fed, pretending to be fed.
Pretending to be fed? What do you mean fed?
Pseudo fed. Isn't that where it comes from? I know it's SUDAFED.
Yeah, Sudafed is probably named after pseudo.
Pseudoephedrine.
But you were emphasizing the fed.
Pseudoephedrine.
Ephedrine.
So it's like kind of
I
ephedrine.
suppose. Yeah. Okay. Welcome to Deep Thought, everybody. This is a podcast in which we just feel a little bit down, but you reach out to a friend and you want to enjoy that time of social connection and hope that it improves what has otherwise been a fairly underwhelming weekend. Sitting through the internet with me, this friend of mine, Michael. Hello.
Hello.
And I'm Nick, as previously established. Thank you so much. Michael, the floor is yours. I have done no preparation for this podcast, and you are, I say this reluctantly, in charge.
Excellent. Blank canvas. First of all, you're going to comment on my new setup?
I was about to ask that. You have moved, or you're in a different room?
Different rooms. Lauren and I were previously in the same office space, and we work from home a lot, but I really don't like working next to someone. So I've been taking myself out when we're both working from home, taking myself out and going into this front room and just working up just my laptop, even though my extended display and everything's in there, just because I can't do it. And then the other day, Thursday, I had to do some video editing, and I was like, all right, we'll just be in the same room together, I guess, and then Lauren opened up a packet of crisps, and I was like, we are making a change in this house. And so now I've moved into like the living area, which doesn't get used heaps, but now I've got like a perfect view of the street. I'm by myself. It's gorgeous.
I had a street view window at a house before this, and there's just something nice about, you sat there, you look out the window, you watch the world go by. It's mildly stimulating. It's mildly peaceful. It's like just nice to have an outlook.
Right.
I had a house prior where I was just staring at a fence, and it doesn't feel the same.
It's not good. And as you'll be able to see, the lighting on my face is just
You look
glistening.
radiant.
I look gorgeous today.
You are the picture of health.
Yeah. All right. So I do want to talk about something serious with you. Kind of, I guess, but we have talked about AI probably a lot before, right? But I am starting to genuinely get really scared about this takeover of AI. And I kind of just like really spiraled last week thinking about it. And I mean, there's a lot, but I think what really triggered the spiraling and the fear was that I felt for the first time that I understood for the first time that AI is seriously going to disrupt every single aspect of our lives. And I'm looking ahead at what I'm going to be doing for work, what my work is going to look like, what
Yeah.
my career is going to look like in 2, 3, 5. You could do 10 years, sure, but I think the thing that I've just really understood this last week is that this thing is coming like a tidal wave, so much quicker than we thought.
Yeah.
And it's like um, even with the images, right? Just that as a surface level thing, that's one thing that everyone kind of comes into contact with. The image, the life likeness of these images is just getting already impossible to tell the difference. And I just keep thinking back to like the word ChatGPT wasn't even in my wheel. Like I didn't even know what it
Vocabulary.
was like until a year and a half ago, really, maybe 2 years. And since then it's just gone and it's getting exponential. And I'm really getting quite worried, even just thinking about having kids. Even I was considering doing as a side hustle, writing little music things like generic corporate jingly things that you can put up on a website, and people can use them for YouTube background music and stuff. And I thought, I mean, I'm already kind of working those muscles at the moment, and it would be a very easy way to just set and forget and see how it goes. But even that, I'm like, there is no point in doing that anymore, because if you're just doing generic kind of music, and I wouldn't even call it art, that already is being taken completely by AI. And why would you, if it's not the focus of whatever you're presenting, the music, if it's just background and whatever, just setting a mood, then why would you pay a human? And I think it's just all coming together for me in this kind of weird fear knot of anxiety and just like curiosity as well, because part of it is exciting, but it's just like I'm trying to work out is this what people just felt before the invention of the bicycle or the printing press? I'm trying to compare it to that and wondering, is it just a revolution, a technological revolution that we just don't know how to grapple with? Or is this really, which is what it feels like, a complete overhaul of life? You have any thoughts?
100%. I mean, I have many thoughts. I guess my first question is, was there a specific thing, a specific article, specific example that you came across that triggered this kind of thought process or spiral? Or was it just...
It was a series of podcasts. I think Sam Harris put out 2 podcasts on AI, and then I listened to a few other podcasts on AI, and I think it was just being bathing in that kind of thought for a week.
Yeah. I mean, so from my perspective, I have always... I've maintained a degree of distrust and skepticism towards it from a position of being a writer and creative and feeling that morally this technology has come about off the backs of works of people who are not compensated. And the same is true for both writers and image generation and even music. All these models are being traded off of human expression to generate work without those people being acknowledged, recognized, or compensated. So that's a fairly common perspective in the arts thing. But I have to say I'm not sure if it's been an effective deterrent in the broader community. I'm not sure whether everyone outside of the arts or the creative space finds that argument compelling. We have people who are happy to pirate movies or TV shows or whatever, who don't really see the consequences of that kind of behavior as affecting them or unreasonable.
I think that's exactly right. It's that you think that people will care, or they'll want it to be made organically. I guess maybe that'll be something that people will refer to, or an organic or human made thing.
Human-made, yeah.
But I think you're right. People probably don't. People don't care.
Well, and again, it doesn't take. It feels like I'd set myself up for this, but if you think about how capitalism works, there are many people in many hierarchies of corporate culture who do not see their employees or the work they do as being, deserving of adequate compensation or humans, right? So maybe there is something larger at play here about the way certain sectors of humanity view the lives and the work of other people. Putting that aside, putting the idea of the moral objections about, how these things came about, I think we are now starting to see a little bit more discussion about the trouble with AI from different angles, which I think are having slightly, perhaps more pronounced effects, or, it's raising conversations about the risks involved. I actually had this article linked here. I'm not sure if this was one of the things that maybe Sam Harris was talking about, but I'll just read this article. This is in Time. It's about an MIT study. The title's called ChatGPT May Be Eroding Critical Thinking Skills. I'll just read this out. This is probably a science news, but play the tune in your head. So here's the article. A new study from researchers at MIT's Media Lab has returned some concerning results about ChatGPT. The study divided 54 subjects, 18 to 39-year-olds from the Boston area, into 3 groups and asked them to write several essays using OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's search engine, or nothing at all, respectively. Researchers used an EEG to record the writer's brain activity across 32 regions and found that of the 3 groups, ChatGPT users had the lowest brain engagement and consistently underperformed at neural, linguistic, and behavioral levels. Over the course of several months, ChatGPT users got lazier with each subsequent essay, often resorting to copy and paste by the end of the study. The paper suggests that the usage of LLMs could actually harm learning, especially for younger users. It's not yet been peer-reviewed and its sample size is relatively small, but the main author felt it was important to release the findings and elevate concerns that as society increasingly relies upon LLMs for immediate convenience, long-term brain development may be sacrificed in the process. I'll pop that article in the chapter. I won't keep reading, but that's a lot of what you're talking about here, right? Like there are consequences about not just how these devices came to be, but
They're
also
shaping who we are.
What it does to us if we rely on them to do thinking instead of learning how to form thoughts,
Exactly. And that was something that I was thinking about this week, where, before, the calculator was invented, when the calculator was invented, I'm sure the teachers or people were going, oh, we're going to lose, the ability to do basic maths in our head. And maybe that's true, but I think the difference with this is, like, as you said, when people are getting the computer to do their thinking for them and critical thinking and basically atrophying that part of their brain, I wonder if we're going to have more information available to us, but we're going to be dumber. And that's scary. I don't know why that's scary exactly, but that feels scary to me, like having everything at our fingertips, but we don't have any, like, what will that make us? What will that change us into?
Well, because critical thinking is an important part of day-to-day life, right? And if you don't exercise that muscle or you don't learn as a child how to do it, then you're both as an individual and as a society going to suffer the consequences, particularly in an environment where increasingly what is true or real comes under question. So, funnily enough, this... Sorry, go ahead.
Just to jump on that is the other thing. This is like this perfect storm happening where we're coming up to an age where not only are the rich getting richer and the top 1% are the people in charge of this incredible technology, but they're also using it to gain influence in politics and governance. And also, as you said, we are unable to determine what is real and what is not. And instead of having this magic tool where we are able to use it to decipher fact from fiction, I heard one guy say that the worry about AI is not that it's going to be able to fake images and make you believe that something's real when it's not. The worry is that it's going to sow doubt for things that are real. So you people will not trust what is real. So it's smoke screening everything.
I mean, I think it's fair to be worried about both directions, but yes. So this is interesting here as well. So in this study, where they had the three groups writing the essays, one group was using ChatGPT, one group was using Google search, and one group was just doing it, unassisted. After writing these essays, 3 essays each, the subjects were then asked to rewrite one of their previous efforts. The ChatGPT group had to do so without using ChatGPT, and the brain-only group could now use ChatGPT. The first group, the chat group, remembered very little of their own essays and showed weaker alpha and theta brainwaves, which likely reflected a bypassing of deep memory processes. Quote, the task was executed, and you could say that it was efficient and convenient. But as we show in the paper, you basically didn't integrate any of it into your memory networks. The second group, in contrast, performed well, exhibiting a significant increase in brain connectivity across all EEG frequency bands. This gives rise to the hope that AI, if used properly, could enhance learning as opposed to diminishing it. But yeah, I mean, we are still in the very early days of this, and increasingly there are, there was a clip of someone graduating, and at the graduation ceremony, he had a sign which said, I did my paper using ChatGPT or something. And, waving this thing sort of proudly. And I thought that's actually the scary part for me, is that people, not only are people willing to quote unquote cheat, let someone else, effectively a tool, do the work for you rather than you do the work, but that they actually think that's bragging rights, that it's actually cool to have done it with no effort versus having learned something. It is part of this overall trend, I think, over the past 20 years where learning and education and hard work and intelligence has become signs of a chump, at least to a certain sector.
Totally. And I think, back to your point before the intro about UBI, theoretically, this technology should take all the menial tasks that people don't want to do and free us up to be more creative and have more time, and theoretically we'll have more wealth, as a planet. Theoretically, we'll have an abundance of time and resources, theoretically. But if the top 1% are controlling this technology, then you can imagine that it's just going to pay people less to do jobs. And this idea that we'll have more time to fucking paint, it doesn't seem like that's a likely scenario at all.
I mean, isn't that a sort of fucking monkey's paw outcome? If the way that you get all the free time in the world to live your life of leisure and, Elysium and, finally have the chance to pursue the fun things in life without all of these other burdens, comes with a world that then increasingly devalues the actual work of art and free time and leisure because everything is made by an AI auto generation. It's and
the other thing is, on the other side of that argument, is this idea of purpose. I think a lot of people, I think we as human beings get a lot of self satisfaction and purpose out of working. And if there are fewer jobs, and if we are spending less time working, I wonder if that will have a negative impact on our psyche as a species, if work isn't something that we are is at the kind of at the forefront of our lives. Maybe this UBI idea is a nice idea in theory, but maybe it's detrimental. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud here, but yeah.
It's made me think actually of an article I've had stored here for a while. Probably because I do feel like we've talked about AI a lot and I was spacing it out. But there's one here from November last year called people prefer AI art because people prefer bad art. This is by Max Reed on his blog or his Substack. A blogger, Scott Alexander, published the preliminary results of a poll he'd set up called the AI Art Turing Test, in which he asked readers to distinguish between AI-generated images and human-fashioned art. There's lots of examples in this blog, so I've popped this in the chapter title as well. You can have a read now. So basically, two images side by side, similar genre, like impressionistic versus impressionistic. As it turned out, the average score was 60.6%, meaning it was relatively difficult for most of their readers to tell whether AI had been involved in the creation of a given image. They'd also, the author had also asked participants to choose their favorite picture. Significantly to him, the picture most often chosen as the favorite was an impressionist-style AI-generated image of a cafe, prompted by a man named Jack Geller. Quote, "What does this tell us about AI?" Alexander writes. "Seems like they're good at art." On Twitter, people are making even stronger claims. Quote, "This simple AI art Turing test proves that AI is creative." This blog pushes back on that notion. Perhaps you can't make those kind of conclusions just from one poll here. I find it interesting that we are generating art and people seem to like it, even though it is kind of bland or bad in a way that is seemingly obvious, and yet it's still being used everywhere. I wonder if what it takes to really be creative or worthwhile is flaws or is, edges or
imperfection. Yeah.
Imperfection. So there was also a study in Nature examining whether non-expert readers could reliably differentiate between AI-generated poems and those written by well-known human poets. As with Alexander's test, the answer was no, they can't. And as with Alexander's test, participants by and large preferred the AI-generated poetry. So here is an example of AI-generated poetry. It was generated as a, quote, Walt Whitman poem, famous American poet. Quote, "I hear the call of nature, the rustling of the trees, the whisper of the river, the buzzing of the bees, the chirping of the songbirds, and the howling of the wind, all woven into a symphony that never seems to end." And then
That's beautiful.
Max goes on here to say, "This poem is, perhaps even more obviously than the untitled Riverside Cafe image, quite bad. Cloying, sentimental, smarmy, shallow. It also received the highest, quote, overall quality ratings from the participants of any poem in the study, beating out actual poems actually written by Eliot, Shakespeare, and Dickinson, among others." But again, this should not be surprising. By definition, people prefer kitsch to art.
Yeah. Well, I think that this might be the real disappointment, is that AI might reveal that we don't really like good stuff. We're not really in touch with what makes good art or what is, good creativity. Maybe the real disappointment here is us, and maybe we don't care if a movie is completely written by an LLM, or maybe we don't care if it's an AI generated Drake song, which I think was a real thing that went to number one or something. Maybe we just don't care. And I would also like to say, I'm not super convinced by the argument that AI isn't as creative as humans. Maybe it's not now. Maybe it can't write a joke as funny as Hannah Gatsby. I'll give you that one at the moment. But theoretically, in a couple of years, what is creativity? Creativity is finding new pathways that haven't been thought about before, or topics that haven't been framed in a certain way before, or something that kind of changes your perspective, I guess. But theoretically, AI will have all of those new pathways available to it, and will be able to create new ones that we haven't even thought of. So I think it's possible that AI could be much more creative than human beings eventually, and probably not, too far away. But as you're saying before, maybe the real value is in imperfection and is in the flawness. But I'm not even convinced of that, because once we get to the point where AI is in all effect experiencing emotion, which maybe it won't, because it won't be.
What you mean talking about sentience?
I guess sentience, but having an emotional response, even though it's not.
I mean, it can already mimic that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
In a chatbot sense.
Yeah, I don't mean necessarily presenting it that, and I don't even necessarily mean emotion, but I mean emotion in the sense that, maybe vindictive, or you did this to me, so I'm going to take. I don't know. I'm not even sure if this is a real threat. But I'm not completely convinced that AI won't be able to write a good joke or a
yeah.
honest
I mean,
song.
I think that the trajectory suggests that it will. It's interesting. So this is at the end of this article summarizes something by an author called John Herman, which says, one strange feature of the AI boom has been the way that the technology has been sort of infected with resentful fantasies of revenge and righteous settlement. Quote, and in what is perhaps the genre's defining post, a collage of cartoonish AI-generated bikini-clad women is tagged with the caption, "It is so over." The it here wasn't clearly defined. Women, human desire, some sort of incel concept of the sexual economy, but viewers got the idea. Whoever or whatever this odd internet stranger didn't like, AI was coming for it. It's AI as a reckoning, a punisher, a revealer of frauds. It's AI as a future vindicator of their hunches about how the world works and as an extension of their politics. It's AI as a cleansing force that humbles your enemies and proves you right. AI as economic rapture. It's AI as your army in waiting just over the horizon, your punishing angel, or maybe just as the thing that's going to embarrass the people who annoy you online. A lot of sunnier AI speculation is clearly wish fulfillment, and so is this. AI is my big, strong friend, and he's going to beat you up. I feel like that was ChatGPT, yeah, and that shows, just how good it's getting. But I feel like that's a true thing. Like there does seem to be a subset of AI tool users who have this resentment sort of about the people who can, right? And they feel like as people who cannot, that those things should be accessible to them, right? It must be nice to be able to play an instrument or to write a song or to write an essay or draw a picture or whatever. This is democratization of art. Now we can all do it. But it does sort of reveal, I think, a little bit of like a resentment behind a lot of this.
Yeah. Let me start with this. I think part of my spiraling this week is also maybe a little bit of a resentment myself, which is that, I still have $40,000 owing to university. For HEX, right? I've paid off almost half of that. I did a couple of degrees. I bummed around for a bit. That's on me. But the promise of going to university and getting a degree, and on the other, which I think is a false, almost an unethical promise, or, in the first place, now at 36, I think, just making kids. And I was 17 when I went to university. Making people who aren't even adults choose, essentially, coercing them into, socially pressuring them into taking on huge amounts of debt is unethical in its own right. But having done that, coming out the other side of it, going into the workforce, starting your career with house prices skyrocketing to 5, 6, 7x the median salary, right? Yeah. That's one thing that can't be helped. It's something you can be bitter about, I guess.
It could be helped, but yes,
sure. But like that's it. But then on top of that, now I think for people our generation to have gone through that, and still on the other side be like, well, actually now the job market is in threat because of admittedly an unforeseen technology. But I mean, I can see a scenario here where millennials get royally fucked, where they get their degree, they still have the debt, and oh shit, yeah, sorry, but all the computers are doing all the work now, so...
Yeah, now we're not going to pay you anything, yeah. I mean, we know, I'm sure that there is data saying that millennials are the first generation that's financially worse off than their parents.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we know that that's the case. We know that the cost of living, on top of rising house prices, on top of, like wealth distribution issues and, flatlining of interest and, salary raises and all these we know that the manifest result of this is a generation that's basically not going to be able to buy their own homes. So it's not an unreasonable position to be resentful of that, and it's also not unreasonable to then look at a huge untested new technology coming in and radically eroding the workforce, because I think the number of jobs where that sort of is going to result in job losses is endless. There are entire categories of work that I'm pretty sure in the next 20, 30 years will just disappear. Like having a receptionist, having someone in your office who answers phone calls, who triages information, who organizes papers and documents and things. All of those tools are already pre-AI starting to be handled by computers.
Yep.
And that is not a role that will exist anymore. And that is a role that was available to people without degrees. That was just a working class role where you didn't have to go to university.
Yeah.
And those jobs are just going to disappear.
Yeah. Well, just to play devil's advocate to my own point, when Uber came onto the scene and basically made unemployed a bunch of taxi drivers, I wasn't very sympathetic to their concerns about Uber taking over, because I thought, well, this is just what's going to happen, and I do feel that you play the hand that you're dealt, and I think no one can predict what the future necessarily is going to look like, and I think you play the hand that you're dealt, but part of playing the hand that you dealt is also trying to elect people who can do things about it. So I don't know if you've had this conversation with your folks, but I have a few times, and I think not to jump on the baby boomers here, but I mean, the baby boomers have had a uniquely blessed run where they didn't pay for university. They got in at the property market, at a very, very nice time. And by all accounts now, they've missed this AI revolution. So
in terms of it affecting their jobs, yeah.
Right. So had a pretty nice run. I've brought this up with my folks before, and they've been disappointingly and maybe ignorantly less sympathetic to it than to my concerns or my siblings' concerns than I would have liked. And first of all, I said, well, how much do you reckon my HECS debt was? Because that was like, you need to pay off your university fees as soon as you can, like start making extra payments. Because I was talking about the indexation. I think one year I paid $7,000 of my HECS and it went up $5,000 with indexation. And they said, well, you need to pay it off sooner then. And I said, how much do you think my HECS debt is? And they guessed $10,000. And that was when it was at 70. And when I told them, they were shocked, but they didn't really offer a lot of sympathy there. And they said, well, what do you want to do about it? And I do think that there is the avocado toast thing is trite now, but I do think that there is a mentality from baby boomers where they just simply do not understand what the actual how serious this is for us, and that's not necessarily their own fault, because I think a lot of them, they did have a stronger work ethic, I think, on the whole, than maybe our generation does, and that's probably due to a number of reasons. I think millennials, the home ownership dream is out of reach that it's like, well, fuck it, I'm going to go to the movies twice a week. And I think when you're making that case to baby boomers, what they hear is, "Oh, you don't think I worked hard for what I've earned," and that's never, in my experience, that's never what millennials are saying. My parents had 2 jobs for a lot, and they saved like crazy, and they did very well for themselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that there is a lack of sympathy or understanding from that generation.
Well, the work ethic thing is interesting because the work ethic goes both ways, right? Like the reason that people had work ethic is because if you put in hard work, you got rewarded for it.
Right.
And whether that was you stayed at a company for 10 years and they moved you up the ladder and they paid you more every year and you got financially compensated for the hours you put in, hours which, by the way, when you left the office, that was it. They weren't emailing you in the mornings or at night or calling you or texting you or anything. Like, it was a closed environment, with some exceptions, of course. But as a general rule, there's no bleed. So work ethic's very easy to build if you are paying people what they're owed and giving them, that leg up on the ladder. Work ethic is easy to build if the goals that you're working towards are financially achievable, where you could work for a year, save half of it, and be ready to put a deposit on a house. Like that's just not a thing anymore.
Right.
The thing that I do wish, just as like a thought experiment, and it's not a serious wish. I don't want people to have to do this, but I think if your average retirement age boomer had to apply for a job in today's market for the first time and go through the endless Seek resume upload forms and the emails and the chasing and the interviews and then the 40 denials before you got a job, I think that would start to put into perspective a bit more like the typical millennial attitude towards work, because when it feels like you're not valued and when it feels like everything is like a Kafkaesque bureaucratic nightmare to even get in the door, then you're not going to have the kind of loyalty that perhaps they expect of us.
Yeah. Well, I think also people would say that, well, our generation will inherit more than our parents did, which may be true. But then also, people are living longer. I mean, my grandma is 90, just turned 90 years old with no signs of slowing down.
My grandma is 100. My grandma is 100 years old.
Right. And people are living longer. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, maybe we'll inherit more, but when we're 85, that's not really that appealing. Now, do you speak to your dad about this stuff much? Because I think of him as quite a progressively minded guy. I mean, by that I mean he listens to Radiohead. But do you speak to him much about this stuff? Because you don't have to say, but I know he's voted conservatively in the past. For financial reasons, I guess. But
yeah,
what do
we haven't talked that much about this issue, mostly because I guess I don't live in the same country, and when we're catching up, it's over a phone call and it's with the family and things. And it's not our style, I guess, in those kind of moments to spend that much time talking about societal philosophy, if you like. I don't think he'd be opposed to it or incurious about him. But it's probably one of those conversations you have over a dinner, and that's just a rare occurrence, just logistically. But
I know he listens to most of the shows, right?
Yeah.
Jeff,
so
if you're in your car right now, this is Michael. Hello. If you have thoughts on this, I would love for you to send us in a voice memo and just tell us where we're going wrong, or tell us what your thoughts are. We'd appreciate. You don't have to live your life, but if you want to.
He's in Portugal at the moment, so it might be a while.
Of course he is.
I mean, we've had conversations about last time he was in Christchurch. We had a conversation about, and I think I'm summarizing here, but I'm not far off the original phrase. He said something like, "So what's the deal with trans people? Explain trans people to me." And so we had a good conversation about like where this comes from. Like, okay, so let's look at a biological level. You know, sexes have multiple different chromosomes, and people, you know, have different presentations of that. And then imagine what body dysmorphia feels like, and you know, looking at yourself and not feeling like yourself, and you know, all these kind of sort of explanatory analogies. And I think by the end of it, you know, I don't know what his final opinions of it were or anything. And he wasn't asking from a bigoted perspective. He was just like, you know, this was never a thing that when I was growing up. So what's, you know, explain it to me. And I think at the very least that probably helped a little bit in terms of his understanding of the issues at hand. So I wouldn't expect him to be unsympathetic to the struggles of our generation, but it's one thing to sort of consider it intellectually, and it's another to perhaps live it.
Yeah, and I guess our parents have, I guess they helped you out with the house, and I guess I think my parents.
I don't know anyone who's bought a house that hasn't had help from their
inheritance.
It's just impossible.
Yeah, or someone that's died. Yeah, me neither. Not a single one.
Not a single person.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you one more question. Let me ask.
Yeah.
I think on some level, you, with your career, are almost safeguarded, at least more than others. But do you feel? I heard Rick Rubin the other day on a podcast saying that AI will enhance creativity. It won't take it. But do you feel any sort of, it's already volatile, the work that you're in. It's high risk and high reward. But do you feel any sort of that fear creeping in for what you do?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think that I'm in a safe zone. I mean, literally all of the things that AI can actually do now are the things that I do in my career. You know, writing, proofreading, generating images,
right.
These are the actual manifest, translating, these are the actual manifest things that they can really do now. You don't even have to extrapolate 10 years into the future to be like, oh, it can be my receptionist, it can answer phone calls, and the things that it's doing now are the things that I do. So I don't think of myself as safe at all. And so it does worry me. I mean, it is a volatile industry at the best of times, let alone with an entire technology coming in that people could do rather than pay humans for.
Yeah, I guess there's no one safe. I think, I actually realized what the exact moment of this breakdown was. It was a guy who's dubbed the godfather of AI, and I think he kind of started something similar in the late 80s, whatever. And he was asked, what would you recommend that your he's like 80 years old now. What would you recommend that your grandchildren get into for work? And he said, learn a trade, be a plumber. That was his advice.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain physical real world things which are now, inaccessible to AI or technology, right? So those kind of jobs where it is dependent on physical real world labor so far seem to be beyond the purview of AI. Maybe they're right. I actually had one other little study here that says Microsoft's study finds AI makes human cognition, quote, atrophied and unprepared. A new paper from researchers at Microsoft and Carnegie Mellon University finds that as humans increasingly rely on generative AI in their work, they use less critical thinking, which can result in the deterioration of cognitive faculties that ought to be preserved. A key irony of automation is that by mechanizing routine tasks and leaving exception handling to the human user, you deprive the user of the routine opportunities to practice their judgment and strengthen their cognitive musculature, leaving them atrophied and unprepared when the exceptions do arise. The data shows a shift in cognitive effort as knowledge workers increasingly move from task execution to oversight when using Gen AI. Surprisingly, while AI can improve efficiency, it may also reduce critical engagement, particularly in routine or lower stakes tasks in which users simply rely on it, raising concerns about long-term reliance and diminished independent problem solving. So that also reinforces what they were talking about, where it looks like this trend is not going to be good for our cognition.
Yeah. Well, imagine just being like a young person growing up now where you don't even know the other side of it, in the same way that, kids now don't know what living life without social media was. Imagine just
Yeah.
being like growing up with ChatGPT and going, well, what you just knew the capital of France?
Yeah, well, this is what this article says. It summarizes the study as well. So generative AI tools are the latest in a long line of technologies that raise questions about their impact on the quality of human thought. A line that includes writing, objected to by Socrates, printing, objected to by Trithemius, calculators, objected to by teachers of arithmetic, and the internet. The researcher wrote, such consternation is not unfounded. Used improperly, technologies can and do result in the deterioration of cognitive faculties that ought to be preserved. Think back to when we were kids. You would memorize the phone numbers of your friends and family. But now we're perfectly happy to put that just in the phone book in your phone. Why would you memorize something if you don't have to memorize it?
Did you see the John Oliver, the last one this week?
I did, yeah.
He's talking about AI, like smut. Maybe it's not smut. That's the wrong word.
Slop
AI
was the word.
Slop. And he's talking about Pinterest and how Pinterest is now, for people who are really into Pinterest, has become unusable because now it's just useless. And he was framing it negatively, as he should, but then it got me thinking. I was like, well, let me type into ChatGPT. What is the best way to make money online using AI for free? Yeah. And it gave me 3 ideas, and one of the top idea, the most lucrative idea in its understanding, was what you should do is create a YouTube series that is like 1.5 minute long videos each of true crime, because true crime is just an insane seller.
Extremely popular, yep.
What you do is, and I went quite far down this. I got it to identify an unsolved mysteries case. It wrote me a script, and then it gave me a link to a website where I can just copy and paste the script and get an AI deep voice, scary voice to narrate. And download that MP3, and then it gave me a bunch of image and video selections that I could stock images that I can download for free, put it into YouTube, and put out a bunch of those, and people will just watch it on their reels, on shorts. And I actually started to do this because I wanted to see where it went, and I actually even opened DaVinci Resolve and I went pretty far, Nick. And then I woke up the next day and I was like, I knew it was unethical. I knew John Oliver was saying, this is terrible about society. And then I was like, terrible for society, huh?
I'll give that a cash.
So I didn't. You know what? Honestly, the honest answer is it was just too boring for me to stick with it. But isn't that? It's just crazy that it's just like AI is also just filling our things with garbage content, and people are. To our earlier point, people are just eating it up. It's just Fruit Loops. It's McDonald's. People, we should have known. People want fast food and they want fast content, and they don't care if it's nutritionists.
No. They don't care if it's nutritionists. You almost had it. What a great way to cap off that segment.
No, but I'm making a point because I've been using ChatGPT so much, and now I'm stupid. I've actually been using ChatGPT since the early 2014. So that's what my decline intellectually has been.
This
for everyone listening.
Yeah. Everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, if you've enjoyed this conversation, then hopefully you're part of the resistance. Sign up today. We've got bumper stickers that say no ChatGPT, and you can get in touch.
And that's on the back of an automated driving vehicle.
Yes, it's on a Tesla. You can get in contact with us with your thoughts, deepthought@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. You can send us your thoughts, comments, and even leave them underneath the Spotify pod. Michael, any comments from our Spotify listenership this week?
Let me check. Click no.
Oh, well, thank you for your engagement. And of course, you can find other episodes to go listen to if you want something a little bit different. We got plenty of them in the feed, so go have a play.
And do, as you know, we've had a few people before. Send us if you have a voice, maybe you have thoughts. I know a lot of people. You know, I've had a few people last week, the last episode. They'll send me like a really long message about like their thoughts on the on the episode or whatever. Put it
Which
into
you
a
never
voice
share
memo.
with me.
Well, some of it's not. Some of it's like a bit personal.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, if you have thoughts like, well, we've got nothing to do. Like, send us your voice
Nothing
memos.
to do. Yeah. So I have one little hypothetical here, which I've just been sitting on for a while, and I just want to float this. This is a complete change of topic.
Great.
Are you familiar with the hero's journey, the story structure? Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. Does it mean anything?
Yes, I know that's the Bible for screenwriters, right?
Yeah, but not even just for the screen, for just novels and prose and storytelling in generally as well.
Well, Jesus isn't Jesus part of the hero's journey? Story of Jesus?
In some form. I'm hearing Pepsi. I hope she is all right.
Pepsi, shut up. Okay.
Well, that worked. So, in very, very simple terms, it's a very well-trodden path. But if you look at things like The Matrix or Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or whatever, it all fits in a certain kind of form where you have a protagonist that's, living a normal life quote, normal life in a place of comfort, but they want something. So they set out on this adventure and they, learn, they go through some trials and then they achieve the thing they wanted, but it comes with a cost and, they fight the baddie and succeed and then return to where they came from, having changed. That's sort of the loop. The point being, hero's journey is sort of very fundamental to the way that we experience movies. Generally, it's a rhythm that everyone sort of feels innately, subconsciously. It's like I said, Star Wars, classic one, Matrix, any of the action films, superhero films, any sort of classic hero tends to go on this kind of journey. So I've had this question that I'd like to raise with you because I feel like
I'm a hero.
It is also a way that we potentially experience our lives in the real world. And I want to ask a question in terms of the North and South Hemisphere and seasons. Because here's my hypothesis. In the Southern Hemisphere, in Australia and New Zealand, start of the calendar year, right? January 1st, where are we? It's summer, it's holidays, we're relaxing, we're living our best lives, everything's free, everything's fun, everything's cool. The year progresses. Here comes autumn. Okay, here comes winter. We're going through some shit. The days are harder. Life is tough. We're getting sick. We're fighting. We're getting through. And then, here we go. Spring comes around. Things are turning a corner. And we approach the end of the year. And we're back. And we're in summer. And yeah, baby, we're back where we were. But fuck, what an achievement we've had. We've been through this ride. Hero's journey.
I like
that's the Southern Hemisphere. Here's my question. Can we extrapolate anything from this about the Northern Hemisphere perspectives on life? Because theirs is very different. So January 1st, their status quo, the start of their year, darkness, pitch black, cold, freezing, discomfort, ostracization, grossness. Then they set off into the year for a brief moment in the middle. There's a little bit of happiness, a little bit of light, a little bit of summer. There's a brief respite.
Summer
but inevitably, with the turn of the calendar, everything ends up back in the shit again. Things get cold, things get dark. We get to the end of the year, and wouldn't you know it, life is back where it was, a misery, darkness, freezing cold. So what do you reckon, Michael? Is there something here? Do you think that culturally that's having the calendar start in the depths of winter versus the heights of summer? Do you think that might have some sort of psychological, subconscious effect on the way cultures? Is that why Australia and New Zealand are so chill? Is that why, Americans are uptight? Anyway, there's my hypothesis.
Totes.
React.
No, I love this hypothesis. I think you're onto something. A couple of points, though. I think it could make a difference, right? So Christmas, is just like the nicest thing. Okay, I think we can all. Christmas is the nicest thing that we have in the world. I think
Christmas is
nothing universally. And look,
doesn't matter where you are, what age you are.
I understand that our listeners in Afghanistan may have some pushback on this.
Some different, yeah.
But I think there could be something to, starting in the depths of winter. And, their winter is also, well, again, depends where you are.
Depends where you are, yeah.
But I'm just basing this all off movies that I've seen and Home Alone specifically. But you start off the year with Christmas, a very nice time, even though it's in a very bleak time. The days are shorter, the winters are colder. So maybe that balances it out. Maybe that's a net good. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it's also maybe got something to do with horoscopes, the way people think that they're... I think what the month that you're born in, this is my theory, the month that you're born in determines your personality. Because of not because of astrology, but because of the season. We're both born in May. We're born in cold, but we have this like nice blip in the depths of winter for our birthday. So we have associated like, oh, winter's not so bad, and that's made us very depressed people, I think, which is why we started this podcast. I guess my point is I don't really have a point. Didn't really think it.
I would like to separate my very scientific hypothesis about the hero's journey and the seasons from your pseudoscientific hypothesis that May being a cold thing affects your personality.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, like for real, I think you're onto something there. I don't really know what.
Yeah,
but it's something.
We'll do some studies. I feel like we need some sort of ending now.
I have a life hack.
Do you have a life hack? Yeah.
So I thought of this life hack the other day when I was in Canberra. So, I don't like using public bathrooms. I will avoid them at all costs, and a lot of the time it does come at a big cost. Okay, but
what? I had to go. Wait. What? What do you mean it comes at a big cost? What are you talking about?
Just you know what I mean. The other day, I needed to use the bathroom just for a number one. All right, so just for a number one. But I don't even like doing number one. My hotel was like a 5-minute more walk down the road. But I was like, I'm busting. I went to the bathroom and I had this idea that I hate going into like a stinky mall bathroom, right? It's just like there's going to be toilet paper, there's going to be shit. Even if you're just taking a pee-pee, you're going to have to pee off some poo-poo off the toilet seat. It's grim. I don't like it. But I sucked it up. And then I was like, you know what? There was like there was an end of the, I entered this mall down like the shops were like, there was an Aldi and a Cheapest Chips. And I was like, you know what? There was a bathroom there, but I'm going to go to another end. I went up the escalator, went up 2 escalators, Nick, and I saw R.M. Williams, and I saw Aesop, and I saw Tommy Hilfiger, and I thought,
now I'm in the nice part of town.
No, I missed that one part. I went into the bathroom down near the Aldi. It was terrible. It smelt bad. There was a kid crying, anyway. So I went out of that bathroom immediately, went up two escalators, R.M. Williams, fancy shops, much different vibe. Went into the public bathroom there, and I kid you not, it was like going into the VIP lounge at Virgin. It was incredible. So my life hack is this: if you simply must need to go to the bathroom, use a public restroom, and you're in a mall.
If you simply must need to go to the bathroom to the public restroom.
If you simply must. Find the rich end of the mall. Find where the money is. Just follow your nose. Really, just find where if you smell like a hint of mandarin in the air, follow it. It's probably going to lead to Aesop. So go towards that end because, and I think this is a real theory. Malls put in more money for the facilities near the expensive shops, and you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
The nice shops. Use those bathrooms because they're completely free, but the poor people don't go up there and ruin them for everyone. So
to be clear, do not piss in the sinks at the Aesop. That's not appropriate. You have to go to the actual toilets in that end of the mall.
But you can piss in a bathroom and wash your hands at the Aesop.
Go to the Aesop, and then you can use it as a tester. Oh, I just want to try some of this hand wash. Oh, yeah, this is lovely.
Meanwhile, you've got shit caked on your hand. Do you have any samples?
Do you have anything to remove feces from cargo?
We actually do. We've got a lovely body wash.
It's $95.
What were you going to say?
It just reminds me of at university, I would go to the university library for the toilets because I knew, this is Adelaide University. There are lots of options over the campus, some new buildings, some old buildings. But I knew in the depths of the library, right at the back, there was a toilet that just no one went to. And it was private and it was quiet and it was hidden and you could just go in there. I didn't even mind that it was a little bit older because it was just unused.
Totally
no one knew it was there. So
privacy
it felt like
is
my
the
private
most important thing above, modern facilities, 100%. And where you can just go masturbate in peace, without the fear of someone walking in and speaking to you about Kafka.
That's where I would do my library masturbation. When I'm reading a book that just gets me a little bit going, it's nice to have privacy.
And what book was that usually, Nick?
It's just, Tintin.
Ironically, Tintin looks like he's been something about married, with his hair. Yeah. You dirty dog, Tintin, we're onto you.